news! Here is some of that. Nick Sandman, the MAGA hat child fellow seen here smiling, gasp, at a Native American protester after attending the March for Life rally back in January, is gearing up to sue the media organizations that shared a clip of the confrontation. Or maybe he's already begun to sue them, or already won his lawsuit, depending on when we film this video. Time is nonsense. This is, of course, following an I Don't Apologize appearance on the Today Show, which followed the release of a longer video that reportedly shows a different side of the event in which a group of school kids in MAGA hats loudly mocked the Native American veteran by doing the tomahawk chop and wearing the signature hat of the president, Pocahontas' wounded knee. Specifically, the side shows that the man actually approached the group of Catholic school kids before they began to mockingly chant back at him, absolving any other action afterwards? Okay, so I could spend the next 20 minutes going over the footage, and at the end of the day, it probably won't change your own interpretation of what happened. You're either seeing a group of racist bullies wearing the signature hat of a racist bully crowding around a single Native American, or you see a group of innocent teenagers provoked and then riled up by their own school spirit, because it can't be racist if it's school spirit, you guys. Like if you take school spirit and you take racism and you put them in circles, there's no way those circles can intersect. It's just not possible, and frankly shouldn't be examined. But again, I'm not here to change your mind about a video that everyone unanimously saw as being problematic, then saw one discrepancy in the Native American story and immediately did a 180 about it because of that one detail that didn't change what we saw in the original video. There's no way anyone can interpret the inner thoughts of the totally regular kid who stood smiling in a MAGA hat while his classmates hollered at a Native American man before his parents hired a Republican PR firm to make him seem more likable in the face of scrutiny, and is now being praised by conservative and religious groups for the bravery it took for him to stand among a large mob of kids with the same race and religion as him while they yelled at someone different than them. There's nothing I can do to change your minds about this kid and event where a Native American man was hollered at by a group of laughing Catholic school kids with MAGA hats that perhaps just had the best of intentions. You know? I mean, it's not like this event exists in anything but a vacuum where items of their clothing have no significant context or additional cultural meaning outside of this single video. So we must, the kings of logic that we are, look at the cold, hard facts of only what the people in the video did without any broader interpretation that might... No, wait. I have a better idea. Let's not do that thing I just said. Let's actually look at the broader context surrounding this event, starting with this.
As for those red Make America Great Again hats that some students were wearing, Sandman says he bought his that day from a street vendor in Washington.
Interesting bit of information about those hats making America great. It turns out that according to the many DC vendors hawking the president's very good slogan, the primary customer for them are young white middle school boys on class field trips, usually traveling in large groups. As one mother interviewed by Vox described, every single white kid besides maybe one or two walked off the bus with a red hat on, adding that she thought it was as a form of bullying, identifying themselves as part of this group to the exclusion of others just for the fun of it. And this might sound anecdotal, but is corroborated by a piece from BuzzFeed finding 81 incidents of school bullying of minorities that in some form used a Trump slogan. Because when the president regularly acts like a literal bully, it doesn't take a genius to assume that other bullies will idolize him, the president. On the other side, a lot of teens interviewed in that Vox piece admit to just buying the hat to fit in or because it angers adults. In other words, our president is so terrible and unpopular that his hat is being used by some teens to rebel. And as stupid as that is, it makes sense. A 15-year-old suburban kid raised in a conservative household has all the political wisdom of a suburban kid raised in a conservative household. If they find something they can legally wear to school that also pisses off a lot of people, they will wear that thing. And I know I'm generalizing here, but this is the real-world version of like an edgelord 4chan troll. They say something racist on Twitter or make a shocking okay hand signal in a class photo and watch people react. To them, the adult world is a bunch of libtards busy squabbling about identity politics while they are using their 16 years of sage wisdom to play 4D chess, pulling everyone's strings. They're Pickle Rick. Wubba lubba dub dub. Let's all give the Nazi salute and see no consequences for it. Because we're not actually racist. It's just a fun joke to give the Nazi salute, ironically. But the thing they don't seem to grasp because of, I don't know, some kind of privilege from being white and young, is that the MAGA hats, the president's words and actions, the blatant white supremacy and anti-immigrant rhetoric, it's fucking serious stuff.
You're a white supremacist until people start chasing you and then you took the uniform off. So are you going to put it back on? Or put it...
Quite honest,
Yeah.
I love to be offensive, it's fun.
If you need a refresher, that video is from the Charlottesville rally of some very fine people on both sides, where Heather Heyer was killed by a white supremacist previously seen representing the hate group Vanguard America. It was this very same hate group that the young man in the video had on his t-shirt before being confronted by protesters and frantically removing his clothing so as to call time out on being part of a violent racist organization. He then claimed he was doing it because he liked to be offensive. He's like Sid Vicious wearing a swastika to freak out the older generation, and then frantically ripping off the t-shirt the moment he gets in trouble and then letting his parents hire a PR firm. Just like Sid Vicious. It's punk rock, you know? Man, being offensive, freaking out the squares, supporting the President of the United States.
Something about him feels very punk rock and rebellious.
Yeah! Nothing says punk rock like supporting a rich Republican president who owns several hotels with his name on them. Smash that system, brah! Now, just to be clear, and fair, and balanced, I'm not trying to say that wearing a MAGA hat is the same as wearing a swastika. Yet. And there's a big difference between the kid in the Covington High video and the kid in the Charlottesville video. So far. But it's hard not to feel like this idea of wearing a MAGA hat to troll liberals and minorities and giving Nazi salutes to be offensive are two rungs in the same ladder. Especially since there's a huge crossover between Trump fans and white nationalists. Something we should maybe, perhaps, kinda, think about. Maybe, perhaps. Also, there's an article in Bellingcat by this weirdo named Robert Evans that looked at 75 different fascist activists to see how they were radicalized. The clear pattern being that many were drawn into 4chan or the Donald subreddit with memes and jokes that slowly progressed into racist jokes, that slowly progressed into just plain racism. Another thing that punk rock famously loves. My point is that it sure seems like a lot of white middle school boys are mistaking an unpopular and rich 70-year-old president and old racist ideals as being fresh and rebellious, and are now taking the anti-establishment stance of supporting the very definitions of the establishment. It's like if Luke Skywalker got a Galactic Empire tattoo to freak out his aunt and uncle. They're searching for some kind of shocking identity to make them feel like the underdog. And since they were born into a society that's currently pushing for things like Black Lives Matter and LGBTQ rights, they've mistakenly underestimated just how much of the country is still very much run by white religious dudes. It can be best summed up by this.
To see major news organizations attacking Christian education is deeply offensive to us.
See, that's the vice president, bravely defending Christian schools, an establishment representing a religion that accounts for 75% of Americans, after news broke that his wife was teaching at a school that excludes LGBTQ families, meaning that instead of recognizing that his religion was actively hurting marginalized groups, he acted like media condemnation for this was somehow bullying against himself. Like pushing another kid repeatedly on the playground and then immediately telling the teacher when that kid tries to kick you back. In context, the kids in these videos, here's what the MAGA Covington teen said about why he was smirking at that Native American man.
I see it as a smile saying that this is the best you're going to get out of me. You won't get any further reaction of aggression, and I'm willing to stand here as long as you want to hit this drum in my face.
He saw it as a peaceful defiance against an aggressor, that he was standing up for himself. But the reason this is so misguided is the same reason everyone's first reaction to the video was disgust. Because the man he's so bravely standing up to while surrounded by his classmates in MAGA hats is part of one of those marginalized groups in the United States. Most likely, no one bothered to properly teach him that, and he's hopefully getting a real crash course in it right goddamn now. So when the people who've spent decades taking a back seat to white Christian establishment ideals are finally starting to stick up for themselves, the reaction from young conservatives is to stick on some metaphorical safety pins and act like they're the oppressed counterculture for resisting that. The more angry and shocked adults get over their actions, the more they think they're on the right track. But here's the aspect of this we really need to start considering. Ultimately, they are not on the right side of history, and that is going to catch up with them more than it ever has for people in the past. Even when most of the country was like, pretty darn sure that Nixon fellow was up to no good, there was still a sizable group of people still vocally supporting him in 1974. And I'm willing to bet that a great deal of those holdout supporters would be less than vocal if asked about Nixon today, because they have the luxury of pretending it didn't happen. And it's a luxury that will not be enjoyed by those kids seen hollering in that Covington video. Their support will be on countless social media accounts and news article archives long until the core of the Earth stops spinning because we failed to build a strong enough terrestrial drill to jumpstart it with nuclear explosions. But politics aside, politics seen here, here's what I'm mainly talking about. If you're unfamiliar, the lady on the right is Elizabeth Eckford, one of 9 African-American students who were selected to attend Little Rock Central High School in 1957. It was the first Southern school to allow integration. The girl sneering on the left is Hazel Bryan, a racist, who at the time of the photograph was protesting Eckford's entry into the school with the phrase, "Whites should have rights too." You know, like how white people didn't have rights anymore in the 50s? Remember how that happened to white people? I do. Anywho, Eckford went on to spend her time being perpetually bullied by other racist classmates, and after graduation became a shut-in and spent her life battling depression and twice attempting suicide. What also makes this photo significant is that while a lot of civil rights pictures identify the people being hollered at, we don't always know who the white people doing the yelling are. In the case of the Little Rock 9, not only do we know the name of Hazel Bryan, but several of the other classmates who bullied her. We got to watch these people have no choice but to publicly confront their adolescent racism. They went on fucking Oprah and atoned for it.
So you came here today, what?
I am genuinely sorry for any negative things that I did at that time. I was really acting as a child.
As for Hazel, she continued to double down on her anti-integration beliefs for a few years after, but eventually apologized to Eckford and even began a friendship with her. The two wrote a book together and in 1999 also appeared on Oprah, only to have the whole thing blow up on them. It's an extremely complicated story that you can and should check out in this Vanity Fair article, but my main point is that this single photograph dictated the entire lives of these two people. It haunted them forever. And for the racist people in that picture who harassed a girl whose only crime was wanting to read books, it should haunt them. And now that we have Facebook and Twitter, that is going to happen a whole lot more. We're going to always know exactly who is in these school Nazi salute photos and the Covington video. And when all this MAGA, hopefully not nuclear dust, clears, these teenagers who thought they were bravely standing up for the racist president are going to spend the rest of their lives having to justify that. And they won't all be atoning on whatever the Oprah of the future is, like some robot Oprah, a space Oprah-y. Some of them will go to their graves, doubling down on their actions, because no one will have the luxury of pretending they weren't there, or feign shock that, I don't know, their high school yearbook page had a picture of them as either a Klansman or in blackface. Who can say? Maybe it's neither. Weird that he didn't know which one it was, but it was definitely at least one blackface as Michael Jackson. I moonwalked as it. Should I moonwalk now? Aw, dang, that would have been amazing. But my point is that this is something we should be thinking about, because it's new, and no one really knows how it'll play out. But my fear is that realizing the horrors of social media will inadvertently make us more lenient on the teenage jerks seen in these photographs. You can already find people making defenses like, kids do all kinds of stupid things. Haven't we crucified him or her enough? And that's certainly a concern. And there's been instances of teenagers taking drastic measures out of fear of internet mobs. But that doesn't absolve them from being racists or literal Nazis. which is why we need to create a system where we don't accidentally make the bullies the actual underdogs. But, someone also explains to them what their actions mean. We need to figure out how to deal with these viral stories about shitty underage kids that doesn't depend on our personal feelings or politics. So here's my pitch, using the Covington Kid as an example. The moment that video went viral, we should have been wondering where the hell his parents or teachers were. Regardless of your opinion of that video, when that kid went on the Today Show, we should have asked, why are his parents and teachers letting him go on this show instead of them? Why are they letting him twist in the wind and not taking public responsibility? Seriously, have you seen or read an interview with the parents, with the school? They just quietly shut down their very white teacher directory, hired a PR firm, and let their underage son go on national television. Where are they in all of this? We should ask that not because we believe that it's necessarily the parents or teachers' fault, but because the people we should publicly hold accountable need to be the people who can personally hold the kid accountable. And if you're thinking, well, how do we know that parents or teachers will even do that? Then you probably have never sat through a parent-teacher meeting. It's easy to not punish your kid when you're not the one forced to do an awkward interview with Savannah Guthrie. The more we make it clear that the adults in charge need to take responsibility, the more those adults will hopefully try to teach kids not to be racist a-holes or b-holes or d-holes or that's it. Even if it's just so they don't have to answer for them themselves. But right now, it's kind of insane how badly the adults involved are handling it. When those kids did a Nazi salute for their class photo, the adult photographer just played dumb about it. The only interviews with the Covington parents and chaperones have been defenses that they personally did nothing wrong. This is a colossal failure to protect their kids, not only from these situations, but from their own shitty racist brains. And so when something like this happens, the very next thing we should be seeing are teachers or parents taking full responsibility and saying they are going to do something about it. It's not hard. That BuzzFeed article about MAGA bullying, one of the instances described involved a group of middle school kids in Hood River, Oregon yelling, "Build that wall!" at other students. And so the teachers organized a school-wide writing assignment and festival celebrating and showcasing diversity. They saw there was a problem, and then being teachers and guardians, did something to try and correct the problem. They didn't point fingers at each other and let the kids go on Today like cowards. And again, I can't stress enough that I'm not trying to absolve a bunch of entitled white kids from being racist or saying those kids should get fucking clocked in the face a lot by adults. I'm just looking for a constructive way to deal with them in the most effective way. And right now, instead of learning anything from the ordeal, the latest example is gearing up to sue the fake news media as opposed to taking anything close to responsibility. And if possible, we really need to convey to these kids that wearing a red MAGA hat is about as cool and rebellious as wearing a GOP logo. It's not edgy or counterculture, and it just makes them look like Forrest Gump. And if you see a kid using our president's very good slogan to bully other kids, maybe stop filming it and instead tell them, "Oi, you're an idiot, you ponce." Find his parents by, pushing him down, stealing his ID so you know where they live. Maybe take a few bucks for your troubles. They can't stop you, they're teenagers. You could rob all of them if you want. Who are they gonna tell? The police? Because they could tell the police, so. Don't bully them and take their money. Don't bully them and take their money. Don't bully them and take their money. Oh, hi there. Thanks for watching the video to the very end. If you're still here, check out our patreon.com/somemore-news and our podcast, Even More News, and like and subscribe and do all that stuff. That's the end of this part.